And after a 3-month layoff, ladies and gentlemen, the No Name Cinema Society is back. We've returned for our 40th meeting of the No Name Cinema Society. And hello, everybody. My name is Jonathan Betzler. I'll be one of your hosts tonight. And yes, it's been 3 long months since we've been able to broadcast to you. I had to go to Portland for a time. Davey had to go to Seattle. So he was out of commission for a little bit. He's still in Seattle. I'm in New York now. I go back to LA in a couple days and then back to New York at the beginning of August. It's out of control, but we're going to try to not have that kind of a layoff anymore and bring you more shows. It's only our 2nd episode in 2017, if you can believe that. By this time last year, we had 8 episodes in the can. And in 2015, we had 12 already by mid-July. So we've got a lot of catching up to do. Speaking of catching up, let's catch up with my my cohorts here, co-hosts. Let's start with my own Maurice, Davie Joe. Seattle.
I like it.
Are you feeling well? You enjoy the city?
Love it. I love Seattle, man.
All right, very cool. And also, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to my personal Koba, Jay Money.
Yeah, I was waiting to see which one I was going to end up being. All right, fine. I'm Koba. Great.
Well, I mean, it stands to reason.
Wait a minute. Does it stand to reason that I'm like the murderous, awful ape?
I'll let that go. But Davie Joe, I do want to take this. I do want to take this moment for actually a very serious moment for a second. I want to take this moment to actually thank you, Davie Joe. This is our 40th episode, and whether I didn't see this coming or not, but this show actually is probably the favorite thing in my whole life that I am a part of. And I want to thank you, Davie Joe, for coming up with the concept and approaching Jay Money and I. In honor of our 40th set of episodes, I just wanted to extend that very serious my gratitude to you for making this possible.
No, and likewise. And let me just say that it came at a kind of a tough part in my life too. So having someone different to fight with was definitely it was really important to me. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, very good. And I don't know about you guys, but I've been on set all day. It's 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific, and so I need a beer. My feet are throbbing. I'm in a lot of pain. My shoulders hurt. So I don't know. What are you drinking, Jay Money?
I'm drinking sweet beer. Sweet beer.
Me too. I got a little sip of sunshine. Little Dasani with vodka in there for Davie Joe. So anyway, so as I mentioned, it is our 47 episodes, and here is the schedule for next episodes. Tonight, July the 20th, of course, we're going to do War for the Planet of the Apes. In 3 days, Sunday, we're going to talk about our indie spotlight, Amore, from 2012. On July 27th, I'm very much looking forward to digging into Mary Poppins with these guys, especially wondering what Davey has to say about that and all the depth that the film has. And July 31st, is our 24 sound off, and we're going to do something different for that. We're going to have our first script review. We're going to talk about a script for an upcoming film. We're going to do a tweet beat related to our 1966 project, and we're also going to count down our top 5 films from 1966. So that's all coming up in the next series of shows, and that last show airs on July 31st. So with all that said, it's time to jump into War for the Planet of the Apes. Guys, I'm going to do a summary. Any objections?
Go for it.
Okay. In the last movie, a rogue ape named Koba, named after Jay Money, challenged Caesar's authority and launched an attack on humans. Even though Caesar defeated his foe, the damage was already done and a full-scale war with humans was on. This film picks up 5 years into the damaging war where Caesar has to match wits and firepower with the enigmatic Colonel McCullough. Guys, how do you feel about that summary?
It's excellent.
Yeah, every banana there.
Bad joke. I'm sorry. I'm disappointed because he's usually a little wittier than that, ladies and gentlemen. If it's your first show, give him a chance. He'll come around. But he is the first to give his opening thought. So Jay Money, the floor is yours. War for the Planet of the Apes.
It's a totally fine summer blockbuster.
Davey.
I think it was a little more than that. It was for a summer blockbuster, I thought it came with a lot of depth.
I do want to point out, though, that I watched this after a set day, and I watched all 3. I went on set for a full day of work and then watched all 3 films all in the same. I had not seen the previous films, so I did a marathon and on set. I was up for 22 hours by the time I had a chance to see War for the Planet of the Apes. And I really liked the first two more than I thought I would, and I really thought this was a really lame conclusion to a strong series. So I guess I am in the minority here, and I think so. I will start by explaining what my issues were, and it's really the story and the screenplay were my main issues, and it was a different set of screenwriters than the first two films. The first two felt more topical to me. You know, Davey Joe, you talked about the depth. This felt not as much in line with current politics. It felt more of an allusion to maybe the Holocaust or the Ten Commandments, or something, you know, like meaning the Exodus with Moses and all that. It didn't actually feel as edgy as the previous two films. Davey, you seem to disagree.
Yeah, I do disagree. I thought that it would have been really easy to take the Colonel and make him sort of this one-dimensional character with absolutely no redeeming value, or at least no, sympathy. But it was complex, and I thought that the way that everyone kind of had a background, and you could kind of see where everyone was coming from. I thought there was just a level of complexity that I didn't really expect.
Well, I kind of want to address that, but let me see where J Money is on that.
Yeah, I guess I would say that it's a screenplay that's trying to do a lot of things all at once, and it's trying to accomplish some pretty big allegorical goals. And I would give it credit for or at least trying for that. I guess that's why I would say I thought it was a decent blockbuster, because I think that it's the kind of thing where you're going in for some big spectacle and you're leaving with some relatively thought-provoking ideas.
You guys had seen the previous two, though, right?
Yeah.
It's funny because I watched the second one before, like the day before going to see this one, because I hadn't seen the second one. I saw the first one like on TV and I thought it was okay, but I honestly wasn't that taken with it. I did enjoy the second one. I think I probably enjoyed the second one more than this one.
I enjoyed the first one the most, and the second one I enjoyed quite a good deal. Dave, you have a preference between the three?
I think it's been a while since I saw the other two. I saw them both in the theater. I think that the second one and the third one are neck and neck.
Wow. Well, I have a direct rebuttal to what you're saying about the depth, particularly about Colonel McCullough. I think it was forced. Like, I see what J Money is saying. Like, they were trying to do this, so they had these ideas of how to do it, but none of it was executed in a believable or organic way. Like, this idea of this family that he had and, had to deal with in a certain kind of way that he tells in this monologue situation, like, it didn't bite it. I can feel the screenwriter's hand. And that happened a bunch of times with like these little trite elements that that felt shoehorned in the movie. Like, for example, the little mute girl who's sort of behind me on this poster here. Like, for example, Bad Ape as comic relief, as played by Steve Zahn. This mutation of the virus that they talk about, this forced twist in the middle of the movie. I also don't understand the concept of the subservient apes. Like, their rationale for doing that was kind of flimsy to me. And also there's a sort of a force majeure moment, and I use that term specifically for you guys. There's a force majeure moment at the end that is really kind of to keep with the Latin theme. So I don't know, Davey, like none of that worked for me.
I think that I'll give you the way that we get to hear about the twists. Felt like a little staged. The exposition there was sort of a little convenient, but the story itself I thought was compelling enough to where I was willing to go with it. I did think when he walks into that room, like, well, now we're gonna get the explanation. And they could have, I think, maybe done some foreshadowing, one scene early in the beginning of the movie, something that I would have done a little differently.
J Money, do you have anything you want, like anything I said you want to argue
against? Not necessarily. Actually, I kind of agree with most of the things you're taking off. I just wasn't maybe as affected by them as you were. I guess what I would say is I left this movie kind of wondering what the point of them going down this exercise was.
I agree. Because I feel like the other two films, like, it felt very clear to me what the point was, but this one not so much.
Well, I mean, I think I got their point, but I guess I wondered why they thought it was a worthwhile thing to really explore. I didn't feel like there was that much originality to what they were doing. I didn't think there was that much originality to the idea of what they were kind of talking about. And I think that, especially in contrast to the very first Planet of the Apes, there is something that's, I think, very specifically addressed in that movie
Now, hold on. The very first Planet of the Apes, or the very first, like, are you talking about Dawn of the Planet of the Apes?
No, I mean the very first Charlton Heston Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, okay.
Because if we're going to go back to that, the basic storyline, because they are trying to continue. You can sort of see.
Yeah.
That would explain why the mute girls in this movie it's like the one human line you can draw to the other movies. You know, the first one, that Planet of the Apes movie is quirky, and it also deals, I think, much more directly with a big social issue. Whereas this one and the whole series in general to me was more about, humanity's natural inclination to destroy itself, which to me just isn't that compelling to make a series around.
I liked what was going on in the first and the second one. I mean, what was going on with, the science. There was, obviously there's elements of racism and how they deal with that too, like carrying over, but from a more modern context, you know what I mean? Like the first two films felt like they could happen. The third film felt very like they could, like it was a sci-fi idea placed in a realistic modern setting. This one felt like, a little more crafted in a less believable way, because you could feel the Hollywoodness of it. The screenwriters shaping things. I think we're so attuned to that now. At least I tend to reject things that are contrived.
Yeah, I do feel like they were really heavily referencing a lot of really big hitting movies to begin with. I mean, I've now read a bunch of reviews that talk about Apocalypse Now. There's some really, direct lines to that. There's some really direct lines to some certain Westerns. There's some direct lines to like the Holocaust and to Roots. I mean, there's a lot of things that it felt like they were very.
The Ten Commandments.
What's that?
The Ten Commandments, I think.
The Ten Commandments as well. Definitely.
The Promised Land, on the other side.
Moses had to deliver and everything, but it just felt like they were taking all these cues from other Hollywood epics and trying to mash them together in this one movie. And I think that they were doing it partly because they wanted to give it gravitas, and partly because it was an interesting exercise to flip the script with animals versus humans. Mm-hmm. I just don't know if that was. I mean, to me, it was interesting, but I don't know if it's like really that compelling overall.
They were trying to give it gravitas, but it felt like they ran out of like original ideas to do that. Like everything felt forced to me. And one thing, the other next thing I want to talk about is what I consider to be the de-evolution of Caesar. And maybe that's a metaphor for the de-evolution of us as humans, but in previous movies, like Caesar was the most rational and powerful character on screen. In this iteration, he's consistently dumb, and he's consistently lucky in a dissatisfying way. Many times. They should not have even come close to surviving several different times. And in the previous films, it's Caesar's strategy and wit and cleverness that gets them out of scrapes. Here, it's really just dumb luck against, he's almost his own worst enemy in many cases in this film.
Well,
yeah, and intentionally so with that. I think they were trying to make a point about him being corrupted by his own sort of ambition and vengefulness. Davey Joe?
Yeah, that explains the lack of cleverness, but not necessarily the lack of the luck. You know what I mean? Like then they put themselves in a screenwriting corner where they're like, well, we need something to get him out of this, and let's invent some force of nature. Go ahead.
I think that the major turn toward the end, before the force of nature, was set up nicely by his persuasiveness and the way he came across when he was speaking with the donkey. I think that was actually, instead of it just being a throwaway conversation, it actually ended up being a turning point in the movie.
Well, you guys didn't talk about the subservient ape donkey thing. That felt forced to me too. You know what I mean? And it's so predictable how that's going to turn out.
It is pretty predictable. I mean, I thought that there would be a sort of a Darth Vader moment, but I thought that the setup for why they were like that made a certain amount of sense. The followers of Koba had nowhere to go. I mean, what were they going to do? So they picked sides in a tough situation, I guess.
But don't forget, Koba attacked the humans, so they would go to the humans. You know what I mean? I don't know if I buy that.
Well, the humans needed that. They needed inside info. They needed fight fire and fire, right?
The whole point of joining Koba was hating the humans so much.
Any port in a storm, man. I mean, what are you gonna do?
I don't know.
Well, I just want to say, you were talking about predictability of this movie, and I guess for me, the thing about watching this series on a whole is that we know where it ends up. So I guess I was. That's
true, but I mean, that doesn't affect it. We know how it ends up, but it could get there in many different ways. And
yeah, I guess. But
frankly, how it got, the first film, I felt surprised me in a number of different ways. The fact that it was this Alzheimer's drug that really, kicked off the chain of events. That obviously wasn't dealt with in the Charlton Heston version or anything like that. I mean, like there was something interesting there, and the science and how like the dangers of playing with nature too much and things like that. I think you could have achieved the same end result in terms of the series without these sort of forced twists. I don't think you need the girl. I don't think you need the bad ape, and I don't think you need the subservient apes.
Well, I would make a case for the girl. I mean, I don't think the girl's character was used in any way that was interesting for the movie, and I think it was kind of like pointless putting a small kid that's cute into this to make people connect with it.
Right.
I don't know if they'll probably make another movie about this. They'll probably make another one, right? They're probably going to because this one was successful, even though this was really written as a conclusion of a series. But if they didn't, she's the only link you have from these movies to how humans are treated in the future movies. And I feel like that was at least part of the reason that they would include her in there. I also thought that was really interesting because in this movie specifically, they're trying to make this connection between how she can live in harmony and unity with this band of apes. Whereas in the original movies, I mean, humans are subjugated slaves. So it's kind of a weird kumbaya moment in this movie that ends up, if you're going to follow the timeline of the movies, end up being kind of a weird, awful future.
But isn't she infected?
Yes.
Yeah, but that's how all humans will be in the future. But she's like, if these are the apes that are starting off the real community, and I don't know, we don't actually know that, but she represents like the start of the future slave colony of humans, right?
I guess, yeah.
Like she's one of the early ones. She'll be like part of the ones that have been put into the system of apehood. Like she's part of their system now. So it goes from her point now where she's with this group to her being eventually her kind being eventually subjugated to become slaves.
I get all that. It's just, I mean, maybe it couldn't have been a girl, like a little girl, like that just felt trite to me.
Oh, I agree. It did feel kind of trite. I mean, there was to your point, like the comic relief thing it was annoying. It was trite as well, but it certainly landed well. People really laughed in my theater.
I don't recall people. I'm told people were laughing in my theater. maybe that was one of those moments that at the 23rd hour I was like,
yeah.
Still awake. So let's talk about direction real quick, if I can segue. I did feel like direction-wise, it's the same director as the second film, but in this film, the director gotten more involved with the screenplay, where he did not in the second film. The second film shared the screenwriters with the first film. Anyway, so he had more control. I did feel like there was a couple of compelling images, both of them overhead. The overhead of the attack and the overhead of the bodies buried in the snow, was some very compelling images. But that's pretty much it as far as images are concerned. Otherwise, in direction, I felt like it was highly overwrought, highly over-sentimental in the way that he used his shots, the amount of close-ups, and the tone that he was setting. Like, I think about a single tear that goes down an ape's eye, and moments like that that really rubbed me the wrong way. The lack of edge that I feel like the first two films had. The edge being like a sense of realism. There was a verisimilitude about the first two films that, like, again, that felt like they could exist within the world that we know. Like, it wasn't that far distant in the future. This film felt somewhere else, and it felt too much like a movie. And I guess that's recycling my same point. But the director has some control there too. Along the same lines, the action scenes weren't as interesting as they were in particularly the second film. And some really good action scenes, and the performances, I think, were not as good as they were. And I didn't like Woody Harrelson, and Andy Serkis, I think, was better in the previous films. Davey, you were making a face and I couldn't read it. So you're the action scene expert. So I
think the movie had a lot of heart, and I guess you can say that it. I guess the other side of that coin could be over sentimentality, but I thought the whole storyline with the little girl, that really worked for me, in the idea of there being a sympathetic human. Again, I thought that this movie, there was a complexity. It wasn't as black and white as I had expected it to be. So
Davey Joe,
what's that? If I was the type of person that cried, I would have.
I'm the type of person that cries.
You are. When the little girl, something happens that gets her really upset. I thought that was a really good scene. Maybe someone else just thinks that's manipulative, but it worked for me. So I bought in from the get-go on this film, and I think it's an early top 10 contender for me.
Oh, God. And just so you know, I have an audience right now, and they just made like the most horrified face when you just said that.
My top 10 is there to.
And this is someone that claims that they agree with you the most, and I feel like you're on the shit list.
That's where I end up with all women eventually.
Yeah, well, you know, I'll say
I forgot who I was
on that bus. So guys, we're sort of out of time. I was going to talk a little more about performances and score, but I sort of touched on performances. I thought the score is one of the things I liked about it. Anything else you guys want to say?
I would say that I think the technology of this, like it was pretty good. The effects were pretty interesting.
Yeah, they were just as good in the first two films. I think. I don't think this was more advanced than the first two.
I feel like I think this one was more advanced than the first one.
Well, I mean, the first one did all it needed to do. This one required more, I guess.
Yeah, I think we don't see too much attention to detail that they put into this. I mean, it really is pretty. It's a wonder of technical feat, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You know, whether or not you feel like the end result was that they were too sentimental or too overwrought.
So, like, whose feet were wondrous? I mean, like, was it Caesar's feet that you were interested in, or
let go of your foot fetish for 1 month?
A wonder of a technical feat. That is quite a phrase. David, what do you got on the special effects? You liked them?
Yeah, no, I did, and I think that a good rule of thumb is that I wasn't really thinking about it, and I think that
I agree with that. I mean, I had no issues with the special effects at all. I mean, like, I guess I thought the first two films were strong enough. I actually would say the second film was possibly even stronger, because I feel like there were more action scenes in the second film. For a movie about war, I felt like it was strangely without much. For a movie with war in the title, I should say. The second movie, I felt like had a lot of action, and that, from a special effects point of view, is much more challenging. And I felt like there were also more ape stuff in the second one. Here,
yeah,
I
agree.
Apes were clustered a lot together.
That was the main conflict was ape versus ape.
I guess I felt like that stuff looked more fake. I guess to me, it was like the actual ape stuff in this looked more realistic to me.
I would disagree with that.
When you intermingle ape and human and it looks good, that is kind of impressive now that I think about it.
I liked the second film from an effects point of view. Again, I didn't dislike this film from a special effects point of view, but if we're comparing, I would say the second film, I felt like I noticed it more in a positive way in the second film. And to Davey's point, I didn't really think about it much here. I guess I have a certain set of expectations as far as particularly the ape characters and how relatable and human they seem. I don't know if human is even the right phrase in this situation, but lifelike, I guess, maybe. I don't know. Sure. The guys aren't helping me here, so
no, I think human actually is right on, because I think this movie is about them becoming human.
Yeah, okay, good. All right. So I almost felt like I was offending the apes by saying like, they're not real, and I'm afraid of crossing some sort of fictional PC line.
It's good practice for you.
I guess that's true. I run into trouble all the time. All right, guys. Our next, coming up in a few days, obviously we have our Indie Spotlight. We're going to do more. But our next current feature is going to be hopefully in a couple weeks. Hopefully, I don't want to say hopefully we don't get jobs between now and then, because that would be bad. But hopefully we can keep the schedule going. On Thursday, August 3rd, we're going to talk about Atomic Blonde, starring Charlize Theron. That is our next movie that we're going to do. And even sooner than that, though, comes our Indie Spotlight, our 40th Indie Spotlight. We're going to continue counting down our indies from 5 years ago, which is 2012. And we have a Best Picture nominee from 2012 as our next one. We're going to talk about Amour, A-M-O-U-R, starring Jean-Louis Trintignant and Emmanuel Riva. And that is coming up this Sunday, July 23rd, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. So make sure you tune in for that. Guys, you want to say anything to the audience before we go?
Thanks for tuning in.
I guess they really don't. They don't care about you as much as I do. So good night, guys. We'll see you on Sunday. Have a good weekend in the meantime.
I care deeply.